Hey, brothers and sisters and followers and Facebook friends and family. I wanted to talk about immigration and the Nashville statement, but in the context of mercy. I wanted to talk about a spiritual mercy that manifests itself in welcoming the stranger. I wanted to talk about a spiritual mercy that calls out the targeting of black and brown people of the world, calling out such leaders as Mr. Trump on the sin and abomination of that legitimizes racism and white supremacy in laws, and affirming perpetrators of profiling God's Latino children, and denying folks humanity. The kind of mercy that calls out deep-rooted ideological and theological personal piety that comes out of evangelical images of a white Jesus, of Jim Crow and homophobia, white supremacy of today, that we find waiting in the wings to yet again use LGBT folks as a wed issue, while abusing and denying humanity of God's queer children. I'm talking about and calling out the unjust policy that finds its imprint in Trump laws and immigration policies. I'm talking about the moral obligation that anyone who shouts the name of Jesus has to submit to demand, to love with justice, and to commit acts of mercy for the least of these. To understand the simple words found in the midst of a conversation that Jesus was having with his disciples in Matthew 25:34, where Jesus said, "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. And I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in." Ah, beloved, to love Jesus is to welcome the stranger and to speak out against injustice. It means to extend justice to folks who may not look like you. It means to extend justice to folks who may have been kissed by nature's son. It means to be honest about today's Republican policies that target those people who may speak a different dialect, because y'all have an inferiority complex with racist tendencies. Confession of the name of Jesus affirms a political and social discourse that exhibits and calls out the wickedness of conservative ideology and points to its ungodliness. It means that it has disrespected the dignity while creating marginalized communities. The kind of mercy that means that the works of the enemy has no power on earth or in heaven. The kind of mercy that means that the character of good and evil can manifest itself in dangerous ways in life and between one another. The kind of mercy that was talked about in Matthew 10, verses 40 through 41, that anyone who welcomes you welcomes me. That anyone who welcomes me welcomes you. That anyone who welcomes the two of us welcomes the one who sent us. It means that whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous reward. And if anyone gives a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who is a disciple, Jesus says, "Truly, I tell you." He says, "Truly, I tell you." Truly, that person will never lose their reward. I'm talking about spiritual and biblical integrity that comes alive in physical forms of justice. I'm talking about the kind of mercy that calls out the manipulation of biblical sacred texts to a place of justice and political, social liberation, and to live what is good, and to be what is righteous, thereby walking humbly with God.